Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go over some of history's lost Black towns. And some of these towns you may have heard of as I go through. Many Black towns were torched by white mobs because those towns were booming and they had economic power. Whenever a town was getting ahead without the assistance of white folks, those towns got torched. We don't see many of these towns because they used to build on top of the towns in an effort to erase our history. For instance, all of I-95, all up and down the East Coast, that was all Black towns, ladies and gentlemen. Those towns were destroyed. Many of them were destroyed by white jealous mobs because those Black folks were doing just fine without them. And it was replaced with a major highway. In fact, all major highways that you see all throughout America, that's where Black towns were. Those towns may be gone, but the history that was written about the towns still exists. So we know it was once there. So let's get into this history lost Black towns. Fort Mose, Florida, the first Emancipation Proclamation, founded in 1738. Fort Mose, located just north of St. Augustine, is the United States' first free Black settlement amid the fight for control of the New World. Great Britain, Spain, and other European nations relied on African slave labor. America wouldn't be where it is without it. The King of Spain issued an edict. Any male slave of British colonies who escaped to the Spanish colonies of Florida would be set free, as long as he declared his allegiance to Spain and Catholic Church. Now, you see how they always trying to force you into accepting things. I mean, look, now we got the situation with the Pledge of Allegiance and the American flag. Now, they wanted Blacks to give their allegiance to Spain and the Catholic Church, none of who deserve anything from us like that. Always trying to get us to commit to something that's stupid. The settlement is abandoned when the British took possession of Florida in 1763. Rosewood, Florida, a massacre that won't be forgotten. Rosewood, established in 1870, was the site of what could be considered one of the worst race riots in U.S. history. By 1915, it was a small, predominantly Black town with a population of just slightly more than 300. On New Year's Day in 1923, a young white woman claimed that a Black man sexually assaulted her, lying as usual. And they still lie to this day. This is how we can easily identify these people, because they tell the same lies. Rosewood was destroyed by a band of white men searching for an alleged fake Black suspect. The number of those killed is still unknown. And I believe the Black people when they say the number of people that were killed, and, they said it was a far higher than what the white people reported, and I believe that. Seneca Village, New York, taking a stroll through history. Located between 82nd and 89th Street and 7th and 8th Avenues, is Manhattan's first community of predominantly Black property owners. The New York State Census estimated that about 264 residents lived in Seneca Village. Between 1825 and 1857, the area consisted of 3 churches, a school, and several cemeteries. All was razed and the history erased with the development of Central Park. So Central Park, ladies and gentlemen, was once a Black community. Some of you know that. 5 Point District, New York, high stakes in Lower Manhattan. Today we know it as Wall Street. So where Wall Street stands, ladies and gentlemen, that was a Black community. But from 1830s to 1860, this area was the site of Manhattan's first free Black settlement, located on the five-cornered intersection of what were then Anthony, Cross, Orange, and Little Water streets. It also became known as a notorious slum, with its dance halls, bars, gambling, and prostitution. Many Blacks fled the area to escape the draft riots of 1863. And then they destroyed the Black town and put Wall Street there that you see today. Weeksville, New York, a refuge for Southerners and Northerners. What is now Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, New York. Weeksville was the second largest community for free Blacks prior to the Civil War. James Weeks, a free slave, purchased a significant amount of land from Henry C. Thompson, another freed slave. Weeks sold property to new residents who eventually named the community after him. It thrived over the years, becoming home to both Southern Blacks fleeing slavery and Northern Blacks escaping racial violence and draft riots in New York and other cities. Okay. Greenwood, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. Many of us know this story quite well. In the early 1900s, African Americans settled in Oklahoma, seeking employment and other opportunities in the rich oil fields. Greenwood, part of Tulsa, became home to thriving Black businesses, decades later earning it in moniker Black Wall Street. But in May 1921, Greenwood faced escalating racial unrest after a young white woman, always some damn white woman, accused a Black man of rape, which didn't happen. The man wasn't charged because he didn't do it, but that didn't stop a white mob from burning it down. Greenwood, the site of the worst race riot in U.S. history. It was burnt down over jealousy, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we did not need them. We didn't need them. And that sent them into a frenzy, and they burnt the place down. That's why. We didn't need them. See, no matter how much they keep coming around us talking about we need them, there's too much of our history showing that we were thriving and we did not need them. We did not need them, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let them brainwash you into believing that. It's amazing how they claim we need them, but they're the ones that keep seeking us out. They keep coming to your Black channel and trying to interject themselves where they don't belong. They won't leave Black folks alone, but we need them. Don't fall for that, ladies and gentlemen. We got a long history of living without them. This is why they won't teach you this in school. Friedman's Village, Virginia, the nation's safe haven. In 1863, the federal government built Friedman's Village on the grounds of the Custis and Lee estates. There were about 50 1.5-story houses, of which each was divided to accommodate 2 families. The settlement was home to some notable residents, including Sojourner Truth, who in 1864 worked as a teacher and helped villagers find jobs. The government closed down the village in 1900. It was now the site of the southern end of Arlington National Cemetery, the Pentagon, and the Navy Annex building. So just like they put, you ever just take notice, just like they put government buildings over the mass graves of Indians that they slaughtered, you can see they did this to many Black towns as well. Wherever the Black towns or Indian burial was, they throw up some government facility or a cemetery or some park, or, that's what they put in the place of the Black town, trying to erase history. Allensworth, California, a California dream. In 1908, Lieutenant Colonel Allensworth and 4 others set up the California Colony and Home Promoting Association with a mindset of establishing the state's first all-Black township. Located in the Santa Fe rail line, by 1914, the town housed the first Black school district, a judicial system, and a hotel. The town struggled to stay afloat in the face of setbacks, from water supply issues to the railroad closing. It stopped there. The township is now preserved as Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park. Okay. And here we go, another Friedman's town, Texas, Houston's Little Harlem. At the end of the Civil War, thousands of freed slaves purchased land and built their homes along the Buffalo Bayou, dubbing it Friedman's Town. And over 6 decades, the town thrived with churches, schools, stores, theaters, and jazz spots lining the cobblestone roadways. By the 1920s, it was known as Little Harlem. But the Great Depression caused many to lose their homes. Some longtime residents moved to other Houston neighborhoods. Others stayed and watched the community deteriorate. In 1984, Friedman's was designated a historic district. Okay. Now, I'm not sure, but that picture looks like possibly an old church. Okay. Davis Bend, Mississippi, a progressive slave town. Davis Bend was a former plantation owned by Joseph Davis, who created a more self-governing community among his 350 slaves. Benjamin Montgomery, one of those slaves, served as an overseer. After the war, Davis sold the land on which his plantation was situated to Montgomery for $300,000 in gold. Montgomery maintained the free cooperative community until 1880s. But the community fell victim to a poor economy and racial hostility. Montgomery's son, Isaiah, established a new town, Mound Bayou, which exists today. Okay, I think this is Mackinac, Iowa, the strikebreakers. From 1875 to 1900, Mucha was a home to one of the nation's largest coal mining firms, Consolidated Coal Company. In 1880, J.E. Buxton, superintendent of Consolidated, sent officials to recruit Black laborers from Virginia and West Virginia. Black families settled into the town, but by 1900s, the coal mines were exhausted and Consolidated started opening up new camps in Buxton, Iowa. Buxton, Iowa, a Black man's town. Okay, so all right, so it looks like it was called a Black man's town because of the number of African American families there outweighed other ethnic groups. So the Blacks in the town held key roles, including 2 justices of the peace and 2 deputy sheriffs. So it had a lot of Black people in key positions. That's good. With a Black population that reached about 5,000, the town was dubbed by Booker T. Washington a success. But soon demand for coal, the town's principal industry, began to lessen. By 1927, Buxton had lost all of its residents. New Philadelphia, Illinois, a pioneer town in the frontier. Founded in 1836, New Philadelphia was among the first towns registered by an African American prior to the Civil War. Franklin McWhorter, a former Kentucky slave, pulled together money from work and his own enterprises to purchase freedom for himself and his family, and buy 42 acres in southwest Illinois. Before the Civil War, the town was a safe haven for Underground Railroad. So that's good, and see, they try to imply that we don't try, but this is really proof that all throughout history, we have always tried to do for ourselves. Always. And that's what many of these stories are really showing us. Okay, before the Civil War, his town was a safe haven for the Underground Railroad, but the Hannibal and Naples Railroad bypassed the town. And by the late 1880s, residents started leaving. Today, New Philadelphia is an open field. It's named a national landmark in 2009. Pinoke Colony, Illinois, byproduct of the Northwest. Established in 1818, the small township spread across just 480 acres. It was organized under the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, an act that led to Western expansions and excluded slavery. After the Civil War, many residents relocated to other towns. Blackton, New Mexico. The Black Ghost Town, located southwest of Roswell. Blackton, established by Frank and Ella Louise Boyer, was the first all-Black settlement in New Mexico. The heyday for the town was around 1908, when there were about 300 residents. They had set up a post office, a blacksmith, stores, a hotel, and the Blackton Baptist Church, which was also served as a schoolhouse. By the 1920s, a severe drought led settlers to abandon the town. All right. So as you can see in history, ladies and gentlemen, we always tried to do for ourselves. despite the fact that you got a group of people that try to make the claims that we didn't. And here's the proof. Our people always tried to do for themselves. And many of us still try to do that to this day. So never believe these people when they try to call you lazy. They only call you that because Black people no longer wanted to work for free. And they call you criminal because that was the only way they could get you back into free labor, was by laboring you a criminal and getting you into the jails. The jails are a byproduct of slavery. Okay, just like policing is a byproduct of slavery, their whole judicial system is a byproduct of slavery. And that's why it's used against us every chance they can get. But this was some really good history on many towns that some of you might not have ever heard of. But it gives us an opportunity to look back and see what our ancestors did. They were here, and they were real, and they have a legacy. No matter how much they make attempts to erase it, it's still there. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comments and subscribe. And if you can, please hit on that notification bell. That way you don't miss my next videos. Peace, family.